You are tuning into the Eagle Morning Show, hosted by myself, Petty Officer Dick Young, otherwise known as Captain Fantastic. This weekend, I was floored by some news. It's very rare that I don't know how to respond or react to a situation. I was having a really great end of my workday on Friday. I had purposely gotten to work early to accomplish all my tasks so that I could climb the later part of my day. As I drove out to my climbing spot, I was having a great conversation with a mentor of mine. Once we drove out there and got there, I pulled out my phone to check the time. In addition to seeing the time, I saw a message from one of my friends, so I opened up the text. It absolutely floored me. At first, I tried not to react and just mentioned it to my mentor in passing. Then for the next 5 hours, until I got home, I just ignored it. When I finally did get home, I walked into my room and stood there with my 60-pound rock climbing backpack on for about 10 minutes, staring at my phone, going on Instagram, and doing Google searches. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't fathom what I saw. Normally on my shows, I like to be upbeat 100% of the time. This show's going to be a little bit different. I'm going to be talking about a guy that changed not only my life, but the life of thousands, if not millions, of people's lives for the better. Stick around to hear some of our stories. Welcome back to the show. It's Captain Fantastic here, if you couldn't tell by my voice. If you know me, you know I love history, reading, good music, the oldies of course, and traveling. There's a reason why I'm on the morning show. I'm upbeat. I'm here to wake people up in the morning. Hopefully offer you a little bit of inspiration, maybe make you laugh a little. You might like my style. Maybe you talk about me with your friends or to people back home. But I am a novice. There's always room to grow, and I can tell you, there's a lot of growth left for me. I'm always looking to better myself, and I'm always seeking inspiration and seeking someone to emulate. I've never been into sports, and as much as I like rock stars and movie stars, they are just that. It's always been hard for me to find someone to look up to because I'm fairly cynical. I remember mistakes. I may forgive, but I never forget. Throughout my life, there have been regular people that I have looked up to, but never really famous people. Don't get me wrong, I love JFK, Teddy Roosevelt, and Patton, but let's be honest, I didn't grow up with them. There's a disconnect. I read about them in books and saw pictures of them. I didn't grow up with them as a living, growing thing. The people that I looked up to growing up were my dad, my woodshop teacher, Mr. Piltz, and probably a handful of other people whose names I can't remember. But there was one other constant who I didn't know. I never met, but I remember seeing him for the first time when I was in middle school. I didn't think much of it at the time, but as the years went on, he became somewhat of a constant. I think it was subconsciously, but I always looked at him as kind of a mentor, someone who I drew inspiration from. Fast forward to me joining the Navy. I was fortunate enough to become a mass communication specialist. I was hooked the moment I touched a camera. I wanted to take pictures of everything. I got a credit card and I maxed it out to get my first laptop. I paid that off and immediately maxed it out again to get my first camera. I started with photography and then got into videography. I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to travel and I wanted to make videos. I was getting ready to leave my first command when I had a conversation with my buddy Alan. I later made a video that became my first vlog, and here's a segment of it. I wanted to do something similar to Anthony Bourdain's No Reservations, and my buddy Alan suggested a couple. When I got that first email from my detailer saying that I had gotten picked for orders to Sigonella, Sicily, my mind started racing. Anthony Bourdain was the first person I thought of. No Reservations, any of his shows really. He embodied what I wanted to do with my career. Not only that, but he was a phenomenal writer as well. The area that I needed to focus on the most. It was that day sitting in front of the computer that I realized how much of an influence Anthony had had on my life. I started thinking back to all my fantasies I had about travel, going places and trying new foods. Going places that, until I saw him there, I would never have wanted to travel to. I wanted to be just like Anthony. Now I knew that I wasn't the only one that loved and idolized him. My cousins loved him, my buddy Todd loved him, but I didn't realize how much influence he had until this weekend. The story I was telling you earlier in the show about me receiving that text before rock climbing that floored me. Well, that text read this: Anthony Bourdain died. I'm crushed. This was the first of many texts and messages that I had gotten that day. I never really realized how much I talked about him to my friends, and I never realized how many other people looked up to him too. I just shared a little bit of my story, but coming up in the show, I want to share a few other people's stories. Thanks for tuning in, Sigonella. It's Captain Fantastic, and if you've been listening in this hour, I've been talking about the loss of someone who I really looked up to, Anthony Bourdain. If you don't know who he is, you should. He was a chef, a writer, a martial artist, a TV show host, a husband, a father, an advocate for women's rights, and as my friend Lexus said, he was a real human. Earlier in the show, I talked about how I got home from rock climbing and stood there with my 60-pound rock climbing backpack on, looking at my phone for about 10 minutes. I was looking to see if my friend was right, if Anthony Bourdain had really died. My friend Lexus lives in California, and I love everything about this girl. I really respect her. I saw that she had a post on Instagram, and I opened it. I almost cried reading it, and I asked her to share it with you. This is what she said. I rarely watch series or shows, especially all the way through, and I watched every episode of yours more than once. There was one specific episode though, Tangier. I was sitting on my couch contemplating the idea of going to Spain or Morocco for my birthday. It would be a dream come true, yet I was held back by fear. The fear of going alone, the danger, the fear of spending all the money, etc. Silly human mind stuff. Yet I was bored and uninspired of LA at that moment, so what was worse? I watched that episode again, and it fired me up. I bought my ticket to Spain and Morocco, and I ended up having one of the best trips of my life. One that made me feel so alive, I truly didn't want to come home. I'm thankful for you, and I'm really bummed right now. Now, after seeing her post, I went on the internet and I found a few more that I would like to share with you. This one is from President Obama. Little plastic stool, cheap but delicious noodles, cold Hanoi beer. This is how I will remember Tony. He taught us about food, but more importantly, about its ability to bring us together, to make us a little less afraid of the unknown. We will miss him. Now that was from an episode of No Reservations that he had with President Obama in Hanoi. I just rewatched this episode last month. I don't know who Dave Powell is, but he posted this on Twitter. Bourdain had fame and money. The demon doesn't care about that. He was the coolest cat around. The demon doesn't care about that either. Bourdain was a beloved voice in our culture, but the demon doesn't care about any of that. If you're hurting, you're not weak, you're human. Anthony Bourdain completed suicide in his hotel room this last weekend. No one knows why. I'm a major proponent of the ASSIST program. ASSIST helps you get comfortable asking the question, are you thinking about killing yourself? Are you thinking about committing suicide? If you're having suicidal thoughts, ideations, or if you're thinking about hurting yourself or others, please reach out. We're fortunate enough to have a wealth of trained professionals here on base to help you. Reach out to the chapel, Fleet and Family, Richard Graves, the hospital. If you don't know what else to do or who else to call 911. But whatever you do, please seek help. For the longest time, I didn't get what the name of this song was until I ended up watching Logic perform this live. The name of the song is a suicide prevention hotline number, 1-800-273-8255. It's Captain Fantastic here, and I'd like to thank you for listening into this hour with me. I've been talking about Anthony Bourdain and the impact he had on so many people's lives. Anthony Bourdain completed suicide this last weekend. Suicide is such a serious issue that plagues so many. If you or someone you know is talking about or thinking about suicide, please seek help. Reach out to the chapel, Fleet and Family, the hospital, your chain of command, anyone, please. We're fortunate enough to have 2 qualified assist trainers on base to teach the assist class, which teaches you how to confront suicide. If you or your command are interested in this class, please contact the chapel. I want to end the show this hour with a quote from Anthony Bourdain. Due to the fact that we are all fortunate enough to be stationed overseas in Sicily, I feel like this quote is very applicable. If you're 22, physically fit, hungry to learn and be better, I urge you to travel as far and as widely as possible. Sleep on floors if you have to. Find out how other people live and eat and cook. Learn from them wherever you go.